Our next speaker for the day is Lee Faus. Lee is a global field CTO for GitLab, and Lee will be talking to us today about driving better business outcomes through standards, transparency, and collaboration. And with Lee, we'll have Adrian Waters and Vladimir Zalbo to answer any follow-up questions.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today I want to share with you some stories around the challenges companies are facing today around the complexities of running a high-performing software organization. I'm sure most of you have heard the obligatory statement that every company is becoming a software company, or software is eating the world. You've already experienced this, but now you are struggling on how to optimize the outputs of your software teams. This could be improving the velocity of your teams through agile methodologies, or increased operational efficiencies by integrating quality and security standards. This talk will be about how different companies have tried to solve this problem over the past 10 years, and how GitLab sees high-performing teams will solve this problem for the next 10. So a little bit about me. I have been working in software development for over 25 years. I have been a teacher, professor, and educator. I worked as a professional trainer for Novell, Microsoft, Cisco, and Sun as it pertained to Java. Yes, I'm really that old. I've had the opportunity to work for some great companies since then, building, running, and managing high-performing teams. This led me to start my own consulting team around DevOps back in 2012. I have architected cloud environments that have scaled to over 400,000 VMs and automated operations through GitOps with Puppet, Ansible, and Terraform across multiple lines of business, and increasing the velocity of software releases from 90 days to weekly in highly regulated environments. Through my work with different companies, I have had the opportunity to see the struggles from executives to build quantitative measures that allows them to report on overall performance of their teams. The problem I hear most often is speed of innovation. This is across industry verticals. Many times this has very little to do with the technology itself and has a lot to do with the developer's understanding of the business impact of a change. So here's a quick story. I had an engineer that was fighting me on pulling a ticket into our backlog for a bug they really didn't want to work on. It was one of those high technical debt changes that required some significant refactoring and would require a number of new unit tests as the functionality had not been touched in over 4 years. I had a discussion with the VP of Customer Success and asked for this engineer to spend 1 week shadowing the support team and listening to customers' frustrations. Over 30% of the calls taken that week were either directly or tangential to this single change. When the engineer came back, I was expecting a revelation about the importance of fixing this problem. But instead, I got even more pushback because it was only 30% of the calls. So I grabbed a whiteboard. Let's do some simple math. How many people were at the call desk? There were about 20 people. So we do 24/7, 365 support. So if we look at that, let's estimate 60 people per day. Sound good? Sure. How long was each call when it pertained to this issue? Well, they had a known workaround, so it took approximately 20 minutes to get the user working again. So I contacted the VP of Customer Success, and that week there were approximately 8,000 calls logged. At 30% of the calls, that's 2,400 calls pertaining to this issue. At 20 minutes to get the user working again, that's 48,000 minutes or 800 hours spent in support on this single bug. Oh, I didn't think about it that way. So you estimated it would take 40 hours across a single sprint to fix this issue. So at your hourly rate of $1,000, it'll cost the company $4,000 to fix the problem, where at a support worker's rate of $35 an hour is $28,000 per week, or $1.5 million over the course of a year. Oh, I didn't realize the impact this bug was having on the business. I wish I had more data like this to help me prioritize my work. It makes more sense this way. Guess what, folks? Engineers are analytical. They love data. If you present the data in a clear and concise way, they will draw the right conclusion. So how do companies measure high-performing teams? It really depends on the type of application that people are working on. It also depends on other dependencies like heritage workloads or ability to integrate across project teams. What I hear when talking to executives is having project templates that can be utilized as a way to enforce company standards is priority one. This allows companies to move engineers and developers across project teams, allowing them to leverage traditional economies of scale where the person can be productive on day one. There are so many combinations and permutations of languages, IDEs, automation tools, and more. It is difficult for companies to build these standards. Every time a new tool or language is introduced, there is a scramble to retrofit it into the current processes. This leads to churn and unplanned work. This makes it very difficult to move from one project to another, and at the same time makes it difficult to extract the data in a meaningful way for teams to measure their efficiency. One of the best definitions I have ever heard for DevOps, it's the combination of agility, collaboration, and automation. Most companies I work with thought this was a tooling problem. So they created a team. The first thing the team did is start evaluating tools for agility, collaboration, and automation. Most companies already had Jira, Subversion, and Jenkins, and this seemed good enough. They looked at ways to integrate other tools into Jenkins, especially open source tools that they could do code quality, security, testing, and deployments. Most of the time, this required building a Jenkins plugin to get the functionality they were looking for. And this was fun for a lot of the engineers because they had no real requirements. They could just go build things that they would want to use themselves. Unfortunately, collaboration was a missing component, as there was still a problem between communications with engineers and operations teams. It was difficult to get them to be on the same page. Many companies form their DevOps teams from their best people in operations. After all, they were the ones that understood things like business continuity plans, HA, DR, backup, restore strategies, standard operating procedures, and security best practices. Let's look at some examples of how different teams choose to implement their DevOps platforms. So the teams took their existing point solutions and worked on extending their functionality by integrating additional capabilities through custom coding. Unfortunately, this meant multiple solutions that overlapped in functionality, as teams didn't coordinate what integrations they were using. A lot of this driven from personal preference rather than actual requirements. The operations teams were just being told what to go install, or they were told that they had to use a specific tool, so they went down the path of extending it. Going down this path meant no real efficiencies were ever gained, as the platform was always changing. Extending these platforms meant incurring technical debt that operations teams didn't understand. Even worse, didn't know how to measure. Choosing a third-party integration meant dealing with procurement and legal teams. Because you were constantly working with new vendors meant you couldn't start calculating TCO or ROI because it's still changing. It's not until the platform is complete and in maintenance mode that you can start to drive training around best practices and leveraging an economy of scale across the enterprise. We see a lot of executives that have thrown up their hands and said, this is just the cost of building a high-performance software organization. This is to give them best-in-class products. Well, that's fine. Then why are your teams using Jenkins, Circle CI, GitLab CI, and GitHub Actions? How are you extracting the data from all these products so you can determine if one is better than another? Are there capabilities inside of one of these products that overlaps with additional products? Well, imagine if your CFO said they needed Siebel, SAP, Oracle Financials, and QuickBooks to do your financials. This seems crazy, right? This takes us to data storage. There are two types of data most people are concerned about when it comes to software development. Those are audit events and user events. Event-based architectures are a big topic right now, with microservices as it moves many organizations from a reactive company to a proactive company by being able to predict how things will be in the future. Most of the products in the space will have two components that fit this model architecturally. One will be a relational or NoSQL database for long-term historical data, and the other will be an event-based system like Redis or Kafka as a transactional layer. People think doing basic extract, transform, and load of the data into a reporting solution will get them the answers they are looking for. Unfortunately, because source code is file-based and Git is diff-based, there is no ETL solution to get you the context you need. So people waste a lot of time trying to build something that looks a lot like the different Git collaboration solutions that already exist. Streaming the audit events gives a completely different picture and is targeted for auditing and compliance to ensure sensitive data can't be accessed by outside parties. Doing this for every product is counterproductive. So most companies introduce a token-based approach to provide access, which leads to a whole other set of challenges. With all of your data built up in different silos, it is very difficult to provide reports across projects, teams, and organizations, with a lot of heavy lifting or adding yet another set of tools. When we look back at the last section, when you add another tool, you have another data set, another set of security integrations, and so on and so forth. For a lot of solutions, some data is time sensitive, while other data sets are important for long-term history. Determining reporting characteristics for all of these solutions is difficult and made almost impossible when you introduce the possibility of an outage, and then going back and trying to resynchronize the data without specific context. The other problem you run into is when you stop the integration process. Do you know when someone is on PTO or leave? This could tell you why velocity has slowed for a specific project or a given sprint. You need all of the contextual information. Finally, we need to talk about the elephant in the room. All of these products you will look at, they think they are at the center of the process. This is not true. Your people are at the center, and these tools are meant to facilitate the software development process. So when you try to integrate the products together, it is a normal webhook outbound with an API integration inbound. If it is only that simple. I've had to educate so many teams that the actual integration process is a short-term response and long-term pulling thread based on an ID to determine what has actually happened. Anybody here that has had to build this process knows that it could take an hour or more to complete a deployment or release cycle, especially if it requires a manual approval. I remember at my last company, a customer was very confused how the response from a webhook was 200, and the status showed everything was green, but ultimately the application failed to deploy. That's because the integration between the products was very weak, and it only looked at the initial response and leveraged deployment stages as events to feed back into an issue comment API to provide additional updates. So an engineer could think everything is good until it isn't. This is even more confusing when you have multiple products integrated and one of the products is down for maintenance. So you get one product reporting that everything is good and the other one is erroring out. The most frustrating challenge is most of the products in this space use a webhook, which is a fire and forget model. So there's no retry. If something goes wrong, which means if you need eventual consistency, you will need to implement yet another intermediary message bus and hope other products can listen from the bus, or you can extend the product to support this additional requirement. All of the different products being integrated over a makeshift messaging event-based architecture means you have multiple attack vectors. There is one outbound attack vector because you usually are leveraging an unsecured message payload to a URI endpoint. The other attack vector is the other product sending data back inbound to an API. If you have long-running transactions, you could even have a third attack vector for a polling interaction. So by adding one product, going from 4 to 5, you go from 24 attack vectors to 120. The more tools you have, your software supply chain becomes more complex. For companies trying to ultimately be more efficient, complexity is something you need to minimize.
Hi, we are Eficode and we organize the DevOps conference. What developers really want is to see their software live. CI/CD minimizes the time from idea to software delivery. We would love to speak with you to learn how we could help you to remove the pain and uncertainty from your software development lifecycle. You can find us at eficode.com. The links are in the description. And have a great time with the DevOps conference talks.
Many of the future-looking executives that I work with realize the tactical model just isn't working for them. They have platform engineering teams the size of some small companies, building internal products that drive no revenue and cost the company significant amounts of money, limiting how efficiency they can ever become. When I ask them for the requirements document for this platform, it just doesn't exist. When they do have a requirements document, it is written to justify the purchase of a specific product or tool. I can't tell you how many times I've had a discussion with a VP about how GitLab competes with XYZ product. I have to ask them to explain how XYZ product competes with GitLab. It usually ends up in a discussion about the product doesn't need to do all of the things that GitLab can do. And because they are just evaluating a single slice, so I ask them to think about the architecture of the platform that they're going to plan to build. This is what the architecture normally looks like. They're going to have a workflow-enabled agile product that can do epic, stories, roadmaps. They want a Git solution that enables collaboration through branching strategies, code reviews, and approvals. And finally, they want an integrated CI solution that has pre-built execution models for code quality, security, deployments, and releases. They need a resilient eventing framework that has retries built in, and an automation framework that can leverage rules to optimize the SDLC. A nice to have is a single data platform that aggregates the data across all of the above, and a roll-up reporting mechanism that can be leveraged by project leaders, team leaders, and executives alike. I then show them the above diagram and say, you're telling me your engineering team is building this. I usually get a lot of people looking around the room at each other and say, yeah, something like that. I ask them if they plan on open sourcing the solution so other companies can contribute, as it seems this is a pretty unique way of looking at these requirements. They mentioned it would be too hard to manage this as an open source project. I then say, what if someone else built and managed this as an open source project and they can just consume it and contribute fixes and enhancements as they needed. That usually gets the developers excited. I will ask how many people do they think it would take to build this. And they tell me usually around 8 to 12 when they include all the tools they would need to purchase and integrate and the general administration of the products over time. I ask them, what if you could have a team of 500 that could be focused on just building this? They will tell me that they would never get the budget for 500 people. So if we took, let's say, 10 people at an average salary of $75,000 per year, you are looking at a sunk cost of $750,000 per year. So if you could just go out and buy this today for $750,000, your ROI would be immediate, and your TCO would be just the administration and infrastructure costs of the platform. You could start driving economies of scale right now that would lower your TCO to potentially negative numbers in your first year. By leveraging GitLab's pipelines as code functionality, you can integrate best practices inside your organization immediately. You can also leverage our compliance pipelines that enforces specific templates are always run for things like industry regulations. By automating a lot of these routine tasks and having that metadata available to child pipelines, your teams are able to focus on strategic efforts and spend less time on unplanned work or integrating point solutions. By leveraging the open source community, we can integrate other projects very easily into these templates, like JUnit for testing or Code Climate for code quality. Now, when an engineer or operations person is wanting a status of their change, they can get a quick view or drill down into a detailed view of their statuses from the same UI that they are using for collaborating with other people. This allows operations, security, engineers, architects, and project managers to be leveraging the same data when evaluating the possibility of a production change for a project. This is updated for every change, made and visible at the top of a merge request, so there is no scrolling to see comments made by third-party products as they report back using the API. If you have a third-party integration you want to integrate, it's as easy as running a CLI from a Docker image and using one of the report formats available to you. Need a custom report? You can open an MR on an open source GitLab product and introduce the change for everyone else to gain that capability. Collaboration also goes beyond simple responses and becomes threaded discussions. This way, if your change impacts front-end, back-end, database, and infrastructure, all of those conversations can be managed from a single MR with different code owners responsible for approving those changes, and you can see all of the unresolved threads from a single UI rather than context switching across multiple tools. As a team lead, you will always have the latest updates available to you, and only when an MR is ready for approval will it be made actionable. This way you can spend less time in meetings asking for status updates and more time on strategic work. Need to know specifically what stage of a pipeline is failing so you can eliminate any blockers for your team? You will see that immediately in the pipeline view at the top. Want to see what this change will look like in a development environment? Simply click the deployment button and you will have a review app ready for your approval. As a project manager, you can aggregate work from multiple projects into a single view to get a snapshot of the status of multiple work streams. If you are doing microservices work, you could create a subgroup of all the services for visibility of dependencies and statuses. This can be invaluable when you go to a change review board, or if you are conducting activities or coordinating activities to a front-end team. Have a group of consultants working on a project? Use emojis so you can compare velocities across internal and external teams. You can also provide access to these roadmaps for operations team leads to know when changes are coming, so they can be proactive if there are changes that they need to have in place for a rollout to occur. As an executive, leverage the analytics dashboards to know how your teams are performing. For a lot of people, they look at these dashboards as a way for managers to micromanage their activities. That's not the case. If you have ever been the part of an inner sourcing or open source project, you will know that it is critical to find your outliers, or a project will lose interest from those contributing. For example, if you have a number of MRs that are sitting as open for greater than 7 days, it could be perceived that this project is inactive and less people will want to come and contribute. Getting involvement in collaboration activities in the enterprise is even more critical. Most companies I have worked with have a set of shared libraries that they use in their applications. Having these accessible as inner source components allows for constant iterations and allowing them to be scanned for security issues proactively. So from individual developer to executive, I think we can all agree that a DevOps platform will help your company establish highly productive software teams. The biggest question is, do you want to see these gains immediately, or do you want to see them somewhere down the road? Now, let's look at some customers that are doing this today with GitLab. So the first, we have Credit Agricole. As you can see here, the statement of switching to GitLab made us go from several days to create a new application to just a few hours. This goes back to those needs that we see from so many engineers and from executives that tell us that being able to deploy on day one is critical to the success of their projects. Another customer, Siemens, who I've worked with directly, we really try to bring the open source culture in. And so far, we really succeeded. With CI/CD, we have 1.5 million builds every month. The whole culture has completely changed. Think about that. You may not need to get to a point to be at the size of a Siemens, but being able to have a way to be able to automate a lot of the back-end processes that your teams are doing manually today, what sort of economy of scale, what sort of total cost of ownership, what sort of ROI could you produce for your business? Thank you very much, and now we'll move to Q&A.
Thank you, Lee. Thank you, Adrian and Vladimir, for being online. Here we are with you back live, and let's look at the questions. We actually have one, which is what Lee referred to, is regarding building the business case and the whole sort of monetary angle to this. Based on your experience, how would you recommend the organization should go about calculating the ROI, let's say using one metric for a DevOps platform?
You know, I think it's important, as Lee mentioned, really, you need to consider all of the aspects. And he did the sort of the scenario of building out your own platform by integrating additional tools. And there are a lot of costs, you know, with that, that, you know, then need to be taken into account. But there are also the hidden non-financial costs associated with complexity, you know, maintenance overheads, introducing more risk that all need to be managed, that are all part of the overall cost of adopting that route. Okay.
We have another question. Does the information about security license issues, etc., in the merge request also work for projects with pipelines build multiple configurations in parallel?
I'll just briefly explain how this works. So every time you create a merge request, a pipeline gets studied, and pipelining in GitLab starts pretty much on multiple triggers, multiple events, and creating a merge request is one of them. Now, every time a change is being incorporated, we run a pipeline and we incorporate a number of security scanners, code quality scanners, as well as license scanning, and all of this information is being incorporated into merge requests to show deltas, to show the changes to the engineer so they can focus entirely on those changes they're incorporating into the software code.
Cool. Yeah, I think that answers.
I think just looking at the, sorry, I was going to say, just looking at the question, I think maybe what it's asking is if you're building multiple configurations from one pipeline, can that be managed in terms of the security and the license scanning? And I would say yes. The answer is yes. I don't know whether any nuances in what you're asking that may add some additional complexity, but I would say the straightforward answer is yes. If you want to follow up with that, please come to our booth later, and I'll be on there.
We actually had a heated conversation during the speech where we were trying to understand how this traditional DevOps tool chain and then the DevOps platform evolve. And I think there was one argument made that we will in the coming years see that some of the organizations will diverge to two of these lines. So some organizations will adopt the DevOps platform where they sort of adopt a hub and spoke model, information gathering in one place, and then organizations having multiple tools integrating into one place. And some organizations want to select their own tools. Some people appreciate being in control of the tools, and they sort of keep going on a traditional tool chain. How do you see this contradiction or like divergence of these two streams if you look at it as an industry?
Yeah, I think it's a good point. And I think it's important that any platform-based approach does provide the ability to support integration with other third-party tools. There will always be reasons why a particular company wants to use a particular tool for a particular aspect of the life cycle, and the trick really is to make sure that the platform can encompass that into its framework as effectively as possible, so it becomes a seamless part of what the platform is offering rather than a very distinct tool that is bolted on externally. And one of the aspects of that is what happens to the data from that tool. And Lee presented some scenarios where you have different tools all collecting their own data, and the complexities of then sort of trying to extract it and make sense of it and merge it with other tools, and it's a very complex problem to handle. So I think as long as the platform is able to utilize the data effectively, and for example in a merge request, so GitLab provides our own security scanners, but we also provide the interface to allow third-party security scanners to be integrated into the process. And in terms of somebody looking at the results of those scans, they don't know, they don't care whether it was a GitLab scanner or a third-party scanner because of the way we support that sort of integration of data. So I think if companies choose to use individual tools, that's fine if that works for them. But just be aware of that overall challenge of integrating data, given that seamless end-to-end view, the analytics, the audit, and so on. So make sure you choose something at the hub, at the center, that is able to fulfill that sort of aggregation, capability.
Cool. If I maybe can add a little bit of comment on how different companies chose this path. I think in general, we haven't arrived immediately when we started DevOps path with a DevOps platform approach. So a lot of early movers chose single point solution and started incorporating them because there just was no DevOps platform at that point of time. And if you look, I think, at a Gartner category definition of value stream delivery platform, there is an interesting prediction that in 2020, there were only 10% of companies using DevOps platform approach with 20% now, and they predict that will go up to 60% in 4 to 5 years. So that's a journey everybody goes in time. And of course, right now, those companies who already adopted and maybe invested a lot of time and money into building their own solution based on multiple point solutions, it's not as easy immediately to switch to the DevOps platform approach, but we see this coming in the future.
Excellent.
And I think it's the converse of, Lee shared the example of adding another tool and the complexity that added went going up from 24, I can't remember what the actual scale was, 24 to 120. From our experience, what we see is even where customers choose to use separate third-party tools, is that over time they recognize the benefits of bringing that functionality and those capabilities back into the platform, and so hence reducing the risks, in the same way from 120 down to 24, etc. So even if on day one they start out with a view that, we want to use a particular tool for this, they have decisions, that they can then look at over time to say, well, is now the right time to actually come back into the platform for that particular aspect of the life cycle.
Good. Super. We had Adrian in a podcast with Kalle Sirkesalo talking about this topic. So if this topic intrigues you, audience, feel free to listen to DevOps Sauna podcast, a longer 1 hour conversation about that. And we also hear Adrian's and Kalle's take on Metaverse and what about that. So that's a little plug there. If you're intrigued in the business cases for DevOps platform, and I want to say a DevOps platform, we actually built our own business case calculator.
Benefits.
Focusing on benefits,
yes.
Not on cost, focusing on benefits. And we add the link into the chat. So if that topic intrigues you, have a look at that. At this point, we thank Adrian and Vladimir for joining. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lee, for the speech.